In this video, we will be looking at continuous domain and range. The first example we will be working on is this graph here. We're going to be looking at the domain or x values for this graph. We look at the leftmost point for the graph, which is along this line here, this vertical line here, and this is where x equals, and we'll start at the origin and count it out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So this value is -7. We'll go over to the right. We have this boundary here on the right-hand side that is at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this is where x equals +5. So all x values for this graph are between -5 and 5. So we will write the smallest value down first. This is going to be less than or equal to because this point is a closed circle. X is the letter that we use to represent domain. On the right-hand side, we have an open circle, so we end up with less than and a 5. So our domain then is -7 is less than or equal to x, which is less than or equal, which is strictly less than 5. So -7 less than or equal to x less than 5. For range, we are looking at our y values. These are the up and down values. How far down can the graph go? It can go to this line here. How far up can it go? And that will be to this line here. So up here, our value is +1, and down here we start at the origin, count down 3. We end up with a y value of -3. So our range, we will start with the lowest value, which is -3, and that has a closed circle, so we end up with less than or equal to. Y is the letter we use for range, and then in the upper bound we have y being 1, and that's going to be strictly less than because that is an open circle. Then we apply the vertical line test and see that yes, this is a function. So that is the first problem that we're going to work. In the second problem, we will be looking at this one that's just to the right of that one. Let me make this larger so that you can see the graph a little bit better. As you can see, we have an open circle here and a closed circle here, and it curves up. So let us look at the x values for this one. So we have, let me use this color. So for the x values, for the left-hand side, we go through this open circle, and then on the right-hand side, it goes through this point here. So this is where x is 0, this is where x is 5. Now because where x is 0, we have an open circle, we're going to say 0 is less than x. And because on the right-hand side we have a closed circle, we will say that x is less than or equal to 5. For the range, here's our lower boundary on the range. And our upper boundary is not where this circle is, but where the graph reaches its highest point. And that is up here at the top of the curve. So this y value is 4, this y value will be 0. So our lowest value for the range is going to be 0, and that's going to be less than or equal to. And our top value is 4, and because the graph is touching 4 there, it is also less than or equal to. And this also passes the vertical line test, so this is a function. The next graph that we will look at is this graph here, where what we have is in the x area for the domain, we see that this graph, while it's going up, it's not completely vertical. It is continuing slowly to the right, but it continues forever. And then down here, it goes continually down to the left, so this is a case of all real numbers. We can also use our symbol with that R for all real numbers for that domain. So there are no boundaries on this because of the arrows continuing in both directions. We have the same situation with the range. This graph on the right-hand side will continue up. On the left-hand side will continue down. So we have all real numbers as well for our range. And is this a function? Yes, it is. This is actually the cubic function. We have one last example to look at, and that will be this one here. We have this parabola that on the left side, the x boundary is right here at 0. And on the right side, we have a boundary of 8. These are both included. So we have 0 is less than or equal to x, which is less than or equal to 8. And then we have our range. For the range, this goes down, bottoms out at the x-axis, but our top value is right up here. We're at the top of the curve. And if you'll notice how the graph counts, it counts by tens, even though they labeled by 20. So 10, 20, 30, 40. So there's 140, 150. So our upper bound will be 150. The lower bound will be 0. The lowest of those is 0, so the least goes first. And we end up with y, the range falling between 0 and 150. And this also is indeed a function because it does pass the vertical line test.